Hello, great ones. Welcome back. I'm Latonya McDonald, heart and soul of Living Be Great. I'm a spiritual, psychological life coach, intuitive guide, and your personal reminder that healing can be messy, it can be powerful, and absolutely beautiful. Today's episode is personal. It's spiritual and it's a call in, not a call out. We're diving into something I've been sitting with deeply this week, how Black women are portrayed in the media. Talked about it before, because I am one. How society reads our emotions and what it means to carry the weight of being too much in quotation marks, while also being overlooked. We'll talk a little bit about Love Island because yes, I am a fan of the show and I watched it. But the public perception when it comes to Black women, something happened when it came to that show. I'm gonna talk about perfectionism, ADHD, and what happens when empathy is used to excuse harm. And as always, I'm bringing you the mix of psychology, spiritual insight, and real life reflections you come here for. So, if you're ready, if you're ready to reclaim your emotions and make peace with being fully seen, let's dive in. Okay, so let's start with what sparked this reflection. I've been watching Love Island like many of y'all, and I couldn't ignore what happened with the two beautiful Black women, Alandria and Shelly, in the villa. They were graceful, supportive, and grounded. Like if you actually, if you actually go back and watch it, so many times people were confiding in them. So many times. So many people would cry on their shoulders. They would be the ones, specifically Alandria, that they would ask for advice in the house, in the villa. But when they expressed frustration once, they, unfortunately, the edits allowed the narrative to shift. Okay, they were suddenly framed as mean girls, while another cast member, which is Huda, who was visibly more reactive and aggressive, was offered grace, softness, and even redemption. Why, you say? Because she fit closer to the Eurocentric standard. She cried often, and in the media, vulnerability is still reserved for certain people. This got me thinking, why do we assume that someone crying is more emotional than someone holding it together? One of those Black women said she cried the most in the villa, which was Shelly, on an interview. But you only saw it maybe once? That part. It reminded me that our society often confuses visible distress with emotional depth and composure with emotional absence. So let me say this plainly. You can have empathy for someone and still hold them accountable. And I feel like that's what they were doing when the narrative shifted and they suddenly became mean girls. They held their friend accountable, right? And this term, I think it was overused as girls situation. I don't personally, I don't think it should be used uh in a situation like Love Island because this is where you're supposed to date even though you don't have much time. You're supposed to be open to making sure you talk to everybody there because you never know. Like, what may work for your friend may not work for you, and vice versa. Okay. And then, I don't know, maybe it's a reality show thing where on these different shows, people like to say, "Oh, you're my best friend in the house." We gotta stop that. Especially when it comes to competition. Gotta cut it out. Cut it out. I even seen it on a challenge, which is quite interesting at their big ages. But you know what? To be honest, because on the challenge that's on MTV Real World versus Road Rules, that's how it started. But it usually has MTV stars, and they've pulled in uh every now and then a few amateurs that now that's just their thing. They're known for being on those challenges. Some of them, they actually do have years under their belt for being in friendly competition and actually forming friendships. But the ones that are, okay, this is your first time meeting everybody, it's a tad bit difficult to navigate that situation. All right. It just really is. But again, the edits, okay? The edits did not do them justice at all. It didn't, you know? And as a black woman myself, okay, I have in so many situations have been trained to not react, not just by, I would say, everybody outside of my race, but also within, the educated space, the the awareness space, the assimilation that we have to conform because it's based off of the narrative that society pushes out there, right? I'm actually getting more comfortable with I think I'm getting more comfortable with not owning those stereotypes, but also, like, for instance, when those girls, if they had reacted even slightly, you know what? They did react even slightly, and it was very, very slight. It was probably like 1% of the way that girl, the other girl, the Palestinian girl, Huda, was acting. Okay? They felt like she went too far with a particular guy. That one of them, Shelly, was pursuing, right? Because the reason why they felt so betrayed by her and that she went too far, number one, because she did, and then later on it came out that she had feelings for, or she was attracted to, this guy. That Shelly, that was her main connection. But if you watch the beginning, the Palestinian girl, got very attached to a guy named Jeremiah, right? And any girl who came into the villa, they were called out of their name. They were talked about like aggressively behind their back by Huda and Shelly and Alandria, and I believe Sierra at the time that was still on the show. They didn't even look at Jeremiah based off of her reaction, and they formed some sort of alliance as far as supporting her in that, like seeing how attached she was so early, but wanting to support her, right? As a friend, they didn't even look at him. Okay? They didn't. They made a point not to do that, right? But she did not give the same respect to them. Now, to me, I feel like I said in the beginning, probably shouldn't be forming close friendship with the same sex, because you might have to, talk to somebody they're talking to and see if you have a stronger connection. Probably shouldn't be doing that, but I can see where they were coming from. But the main thing is the fallout, right? The fallout is that they were labeled mean girls, okay? And there were so many memes, their accounts were hacked. People attacked their appearance, it doesn't make any sense. These girls are beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So they found a way to tear these girls down. It's kind of like they were waiting for something, because a lot of people kept saying they were appearing too graceful, too poised, and they themselves felt like they had to hold back. But it's true, in society you do, because look at them showing that little bit of telling the hooded girl, hey, you went too far, right? And not in an aggressive way. They ain't yell at her, they ain't scream at her, right? They didn't call her out of her name, none of that, right? Versus what she did. And I've been there, okay? I've been there. I mean, and you kind of saw it from the beginning when the first recoupling happened, and Jeremiah of course picked Huda, and the guys that Shelly and Alandria were connected to uh wanted to explore the connection with the bombshell, which was Sierra that came in, and Huda was making a big deal out of it, kind of like, oh, saying stuff like, oh yeah, I'm glad you did good, and yeah, y'all need to get some better men or something. And Alandria's just like, okay, girl, I don't need that now. We talk about it later, but you don't gotta do that. Kind of telling her, listen, you don't have to have sympathy or anything for me. You don't need to stand up for me. This is the first recoupling. Like, we're good. Like, this is actually how it's supposed to happen if they want to. Like, don't pity me, basically. And she started crying. Huda immediately started crying. And if you listen to her interview, you hear about her childhood trauma and things of that nature. Which everybody on the cast got childhood trauma. Which, we'll talk about later on in this episode. But it was, man, we might need a full episode dedicated just to this breakdown of Love Island. But the crying and the victimhood, okay? And I'm saying this as somebody who has a master's in psychology, former therapist, okay, now life coach. Um, People can have a sense of entitlement, and they can use their trauma to manipulate other people and avoid accountability, okay? Right? They can. And sometimes people pull that out when they know they're wrong, right? But also the level of trauma. She's also a Virgo, okay? And sometimes Virgos, they can have this black and white thinking, this by the book type of thinking, and sometimes they can catastrophize. Because every Virgo I know has anxiety, every last one of them. Okay, And they have the nature to be of service, right? And if that is unchecked, and the type of trauma she's gone through, okay? Type of trauma she's gone through, and not being believed by her family. And if you know anything about Virgos, they're very, very, very much the caretakers of their family, right? That, the black and white thinking, you got good person, bad person, and the catastrophizing mixed with the anxiety and the PTSD and all of that, that is a terrible, that is a that is a crazy, I don't know how to explain it, not crazy, but that is a very, very, let's say it's a very, very difficult mental state to navigate. Okay? It really, really is. It really, really is. But as a black woman, oftentimes you don't get the opportunity, okay, for people to see that. And then when they see just a glimpse of it, it's a wrap for you. In the way they edited it, I wish they showed more of the vulnerability of those black women. I wish it wasn't just Huda that got the the edit of redemption. Okay, like I don't know, it was a lot. Maybe I'll talk more about it during the reunion because I don't want to stay too much, especially for people who don't have any intention on watching it. But just to give you some context, okay? Now, the other thing is, let's move to the next section of this conversation of what's been on my mind. The fear of being seen. I have spent years navigating perfectionism, my ADHD, anxiety, and depression, all while trying to show up in the world as a whole woman, as a leader, a healer, a truth teller. Listen, y'all, this is who I am, okay? I am this. This is me. I'm all of this, right? I suffer from these things, but I find ways to use them as my superpower, but it's still a struggle, right? I'm able to use it as a superpower when I'm trying to help people, but it's just to be a human being. It is hard. Okay, there's a part of me that still fears what might happen if I'm too honest, if I'm too loud, if I'm too passionate, and if I let my frustration show, because stuff like that, like what happened with the girls, okay? It's happened to me, you know? It's in my chart too. My my Scorpio placement being in the first house, and my Scorpio placement being in the 12th house, right? The Scorpio is very mysterious, intuitive, um, dark, right? Spiritual, and yeah, maybe paranoid sometimes of giving too much or showing too much because of that fear of being hurt. Like that's actually in my chart. The Scorpio placements show you what you hide, right? When you look at where it is in the houses, if you have any Scorpio placements, and people from my generation, millennials, they have a Scorpio placement in their chart. And wherever that Pluto is usually aligned with the generation you come in with, right? So go look that up to see, what you possibly could be hiding that's associated with that house, right? But anyways, Not too much on that. Save that for another episode. Um, the fear of judgment, right? The fear of my fullness, the coping mechanism of shrinking, the mask of perfection. That fear leads to analysis paralysis. It whispers, don't post it. Don't say that. Don't launch yet. And it is exhausting. We're told to be strong, but never intimidating. Soft, but never emotional. Real, but never too much. And if we mess up, there's rarely a redemption arc waiting for us. Right? Rarely. That's a problem. So, yeah, society doesn't help. Society doesn't help. And that is why, if you look on my social media, people may swear because I have 30,000 followers on TikTok, right? Over 30,000 followers on TikTok, that I am just this extroverted, get out there and do stuff type person. I'm not, right? The truth is in the consistency. I say all the time, me and consistency are we have a love-hate relationship. We just do. Like it's it's not my thing oftentimes, and it's very, 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 very difficult to navigate that space. It is. Okay. I went a whole year without doing this podcast. And podcast is actually way easier than than me, posting videos. Okay. I'd rather do faceless content because the perfectionism comes in, right? To where my makeup gotta be right, my background gotta be together, the lighting gotta be just right. I have to like the way I talk. And this stuff shouldn't matter. So I'm listen, that is something that I'm still working on. Right now, I had this great idea. Well, my husband gave me this great idea to have quotes that I could look at whenever my perfectionism is sneaking up and I'm getting overwhelmed, right? Because part of that perfectionism, that ADHD, procrastination. We love a procrastination. Okay, we will learn how to speak a whole new language to avoid filing our taxes. Not to say that I do that, but it's just an example. Like that's what happens, right? When that perfectionism hit, that anxiety, that depression, when they all like they ganging up on you. Okay, whatever you have. You could not have these disorders, but like some of the symptoms, perfectionism, period, right? That's also in my chart. I'm Pisces. I'm a Pisces, and I have sixth house placement, so that's the Virgo energy. It's the sixth house. We're opposites, but we're alike when it comes to that perfectionism and wanting to just give love and light to people and for them to feel supported, right? But also lead by example. So oftentimes, sometimes we can be hard on other people because we're very, very hard on ourselves, you know? So these quotes that I have on my desk, very helpful, right? Very, very helpful to have quotes that help me get out of my own way. So sometimes, that might be a great idea for you if you struggle with any of these things when it comes to being who you are, if you're a business owner or you have something to say, or with any task that, you find yourself procrastinating on or having anxiety about, or just showing up in the world, okay? Showing up as yourself, being seen, and being seen imperfectly. If you struggle with these things, this might be a great idea, right? To have quotes that inspire you to push through no matter what, because it's always somebody that's wishing that they were where you're at just to get to that step, 10 steps behind you. Okay? So to honor that allows you to give yourself grace, and hopefully in your times that you're struggling to just be, this is something that you can do. You can find more, instead of the shrinking thing like I do, and I'm trying to learn not to do. Talk to somebody, right? Have quotes. There are things you can do that are healthy, that push you in the right direction. Okay? When it comes to this. And sometimes you got to be your own redemption arc. Sometimes you got to check the facts and tell yourself the truth, right? Look back on your story when that perfectionism hits, when that anxiety, that depression hits, or that just feeling of not being worthy, okay? And navigating backwards, let me back up a bit. When I talked about earlier about the being a Black woman and getting more comfortable in my skin, but also how I feel, right? I think I've said this previously, but I'm gonna say it again, okay? Being labeled an angry Black woman if you show any type of emotion, I'm okay with that now, because if I'm being provoked, I have every right, and I want everybody to know, not just regular people, but us Black folks, okay? And Black women specifically, if you're being provoked, you have a right to be angry. You have a right to feel any emotion that you have, period. You just do, okay? The thing you have to be accountable for is what you do with that emotion. That's it, right? If it's going to be a situation where you're causing harm to anybody else, then yeah, we got to bring you to the floor and we got to hold you accountable. We may know why you're upset, right? We may have that empathy for you, but regardless, if you're a human being and you're hurting somebody, gotta have that accountability, right? But I think we need to have space for Black women, okay, Black girls, to feel their emotions. So it's not a build up and a blow up, right? Because they've been taught that if you show any little bit of anything, you're villainized. And we got to get more comfortable seeing all types of women, but also understanding hey, if I've been taught by society to not showcase my emotion or I'll be villainized, why, when I showcase a little bit, I get villainized anyways? Right? You proving me right as to why I gotta show up and hide myself at the same time. Show up and support everybody else, but hide myself. Be called fake. And then when I do show a little tiny bit, I'm being called mean and being labeled angry. Listen, if you provoke me, I'd have a right to be angry. And what then? Okay? Y'all, it's a lot to navigate. It is, but we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. We're gonna push through and we're gonna have more conversations about it. Right? Now, this leads me to a reoccurring theme I keep bringing up in my work, right? Brought it up last 2 episodes. Two things can be true at once. Okay? Two things can be true at once. You can honor somebody's trauma and still walk away with them. Walk away from them. Okay? I'm saying that again. You can honor somebody's trauma and still walk away from them. Yes, yes, yes. You can. You can be strong or be the strong one in your family and still need support. You can love someone deeply and still need distance. You can empathize with someone's trauma and still not accept their behavior. So many of us are trying to make peace with complicated relationships, narratives, and identities. We want to believe people are either good or bad, safe or unsafe, loving or harmful. But I'll say it again, that binary thinking keeps us stuck. Life is gray. Relationships are layered, and healing means we have to get comfortable holding that duality. Okay? Right? You can mess up. You can mess up in this world. You can hurt somebody in this world, but that accountability shows up in that healing, right? The changed behavior, not just telling people the reason why. Tell the therapist the reason why. Tell the life coach, right? Go through that process. The mentor, whoever, you tell them the reason why, and you help. You work through that, but you got to be accountable for your actions. Not just I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. There is no but after I'm sorry. Okay? It's I'm sorry, the end, or I apologize, the end. Okay? Gotta be accountable, not just you can't. Yes, you shift that narrative from victim to survivor when you are accountable for your actions and accountable for your healing and you're working through that trauma. Okay? And yes, sometimes people only want one version of you. You can't please everybody. So at the end of the day, you got to decide who you are and who you're trying to be. Whether it's in the media, whether it's in your family, relationships, at your job, you have to decide who you want to be and take that power back. Look in your chart, right? Look in your astrology chart, your numerology chart. Look in those charts and study yourself, right? To see, you can look at that chart and figure out, see areas of how that trauma shows up. Okay, your destiny, the path, your struggle, your mission, all of that. You can look at your chart. It's in there, right? Whether you believe it or not. I mean, it's worth looking at just to see what will resonate with you, right? That's being accountable. Finding every system you can possibly find um to be who you want to be, though, to get you to your destiny and to make meaning out of your life. Defined by you. Okay, that's success defined by you. So, how it helped me is like when I started naming what I was really feeling, when I said, I'm overwhelmed, I'm afraid, I'm shrinking myself, that's when I started getting free. Naming your feelings is not, it's not a weakness. It's a spiritual act. It's saying to the universe, I'm awake now. I'm aware. I'm no longer gaslighting myself. For what? And when you can name it, you can transform it. Okay? So here's what I want you to know. If you've ever been told you're too much, too emotional, too honest, or if you struggle to stay consistent because your mind won't slow down, or if you found yourself trying to be soft enough to be loved and loud enough to be heard, you're not broken. You're awakening, right? I have a journal prompt for you. So write this down. Ask yourself, where have I confused being too much with simply being honest? Where have I confused being too much with simply being honest? Affirmation for you. I release the need to shrink. I trust that my emotions are valid and my truth deserves space. I release the need to shrink. I trust that my emotions are valid and my truth deserves space. Okay? And if you're craving deeper support on your journey, whether it's understanding your chart, healing family patterns, or reconnecting to your power, come see me at liveandbegreat.com. My coaching, my astrology readings, and transformational sessions are designed for people who are ready to stop dimming their light and start living out loud. Because greatness isn't a destination, it's your birthright. It is, it is. So until next time, I hope you have enjoyed this episode. Hopes it sparks some conversation, not just with others, but definitely some self reflection with yourself. Okay? Stay grounded, stay curious, and stay great.